give you a little bit of background.
Okay, good. Let's see. Okay, we are live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, I have a very special guest, a returning guest. His name is Christopher Loring Knowles. Last name is spelled Knowles. You'll see this cover of his new book. The full title of the new book is The SecretSun Synchromystic Handbook, and the art is by Chris Knowles as well. So not only does he write great books, but he's an artist as well. And I was supposed to have him on yesterday. I went over with this whole case, John Ray, about the Huerman case. So I'm glad that he's enough to come back on today. So it's been 24 hours. Actually kind of gave me some time to prepare and go through the background, go through some of his books, and remember the two earlier discussions we had, which was one of his books, The Endless American Midnight, Dispatches from the Secret Sun. I think that was 2 or 3 years ago. And then he did some West Memphis 3 research that was really very insightful stuff that I kind of looked over about kind of Druidism. So we did a show that I titled West Memphis 3 Insight and Analysis. So people can check those two out in my archive. I'll try to remember to put links to that, but this is not his first book. We were kind of going through his earlier books as well. He's written Clash, City Showdown, also The Gods Wear Spandex, Our Gods Wear Spandex, The Complete X-Files, Secret History of Rock and Roll, He Will Live Up in the Sky. And then I think there's another one, The Spandex Files, but also his blog. Like when I was researching, even before I met Chris, I would be researching and bounce into the Secret Sun blog. So I'll put a link to that too. A lot of great research there. A lot of stuff that I was interested in. But he also has an active Patreon, and I need to catch up on some stuff there. We were talking in the pre-show. So I'll put a link to his Patreon, his Twitter. He tweets a lot, Facebook group, and then an email. But anyway, there's a lot to talk about, a lot of current events, but also this book. So again, Christopher Knowles, and the new book is titled The SecretSun Synchromystic Handbook. So Chris, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Awesome. So for people who may not have heard our earlier talks or are familiar with your name, maybe you can maybe add on to what I was kind of talking about at the intro and what led up to putting together the SecretSun Synchromystic Handbook.
Well, I've been doing what's called synchromysticism now for over 30 years, before it even had the name. And I was sort of in on the first wave of synchromistic blog spotters, people like Jake Coetzee and Steve Wilner and Kent Benkowski, the late Kent Benkowski, a number of different people. The community is really not what it used to be. But people are still interested in the methodology. And what I wanted to do, since a lot of people kind of confused about how to do it best and how to do it without driving yourself crazy, which is a major occupational hazard with this work, is I wanted to put together, a rational, measured, organized type of instruction manual for people so they could do the work, but do it in a way that is, like I said, ordered and sane. I mean, the thing is with synchronicity is that when you start to play with it, it starts to play with you, and it can mess your head up. And a lot of people can go crazy, but there's also a lot of false signals. There's a lot of static amidst all the noise. And I really want to just spell it out. What is synchronicity as opposed to a mere coincidence? What is a highly significant synchronicity? What separates them? What should you be paying attention to? Coincidences happen all the time. I mean, it's just part of life. But in fact, synchronicities happen all the time too. We just tend to give it a little more importance because there's meaning involved. A synchronicity, put simply, is a meaningful coincidence. But there's also what I put in a chapter in is the art of spell breaking, and trying to decipher a lot of these rituals that are being carried out on an increasing basis, and decoding them. What is the messaging? What are they trying to say? Why are they doing this? I mean, I think they're doing the rituals more and more often and more in your face with it, really, because I think there's a deep layer of anxiety amongst the the power brokers, and we're sort of seeing that because I started noticing. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Gotthard Tunnel in Switzerland. They did this
Yes.
ritual in 2016 that was just so insane and so over the top that everyone noticed, and everybody's going like, "What are they doing? Why are they doing this?" I think in hindsight now we're realizing this whole drive towards World War III that I believe has already begun. By the way, I think it was all part of it. It was all part of trying to satiate their strange gods in order to gain their blessings for their big plans, their big agendas. I mean, I think that these plans and these agendas are going to fail ultimately. I really do. I people give me a lot of heat for that and say that I'm like a Pollyanna or something. And I don't. I say, well, that, the other half of that is these plans are going to fail, and we're all going to be paying the price for it. We're all going to be caught in the fallout, right? So that's really kind of the basis of it. But I mean, a lot of the work that I do is spell breaking, but also deciphering things. You and I have talked about not Smiley Face. We are going to talk about Smiley Face, but we talked about West Memphis. And it was really, I think the key to that case, to really breaking that case completely, is the ritualism behind it. And we discussed that, all the almost orthodox druidry. I hate to use that term because it sounds preposterous in some ways, but if you really look at the details of those murders and how the bodies were disposed of, with the pinions, we talked about the pinions, which come straight out of druidic human sacrifice, but the time and the date and the place and all these sort of things, it was all very well orchestrated. The question for me becomes, did they act alone? Were there others, perhaps even adults, that were involved? It's an open question, but to me, it's manifestly clear that those murders were druidic ritual sacrifices. And I think the problem the prosecution made was, and this is something I talk about in the book, is like people are always trying to reduce it to Satanism. And that's a major mistake, because when you look at the ritualism, when you look at the symbolism, when you look at the semiotics of it all, it really points to all these weird, strange mystery cult gods from late antiquity, mostly. But as I said in the book, I mean, there are all sorts of cults that have existed for a very long time that give you full license to do whatever you want anyway, without feeling that you're somehow transgressing somebody's boundaries. In this case, you're serving these gods who desire the blood of children specifically. But my study of synchronicity and my study of synchromysticism, which really arose, I would say that the main impetus behind the rise of synchromysticism as an art was 9/11. All these people sort of going in and looking at the symbolism in 9/11 and so on, and the aftermath, the thing with like the Back to the Future video and so on. So I mean, there are a lot of layers to it, but I have found that my synchronistic studies have really helped me to, I think, better analyze a lot of this insane nonsense that these power players are pushing on us.
And it really is. There's a lot. I mean, there's so many. There's a lot. Even I had a guy on just recently talking about the 77s that are integrated in so many of these other events that I didn't even know, like Oklahoma City. Like he was driving a car with the 77 on the license plate, 77 like car, just all. I mean, so it's ritualized to and it's almost ties into being synced, right? So they're doing it to get the most magical power out of these actions, and synchromysticism is detecting all of those things.
It's part of it. It's definitely part of it. It's a major part of it. And like, as I said, I mean, it was part of the impetus behind it. And actually, the proto-synchromystics would be people like James Shelby Downard. I don't know if you ever read King Kill 33.
Yeah, I've done a couple shows on that.
Yeah, that to me is a major forerunner prototype, particularly that form of synchromysticism that arose in the wake of 9/11. And interestingly enough, when I was really doing my serious synchronistic work, it was also in the wake of 9/11 because I'm a freelancer. I had no work. I had a new computer, and Google was still useful. Google still gave you the results you wanted to, and it was just morning, noon, and night. Trying to figure all this stuff out. But I don't know if you remember, because in the wake of 9/11, you also had the anthrax attacks.
Right.
You also had the DC sniper. I mean, there are all
Right.
these like crazy things going on that were just really invested with high ritualism,
Right.
symbolism. There was also what
It
was
was
her name?
February 16th, 2002 to October 2002. And that
Was
was
that
like the crosses in a frog, or what did he say to him? The
the
DC
duck
chief. Yeah.
something? Yeah, it was
Yeah.
clearly a post-hypnotic suggestion
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yes.
But it was also Chandra Levy and Gary Condit.
Yeah.
Do you
That's right.
remember that
Yep. Very
situation? I
much.
mean, there
Yeah.
was just so much going on that was just so weird. Gary Condit is, what is it, Ceres County, I think it was, and up
Yeah.
there in
Condit, like they said, they found the male fluids of like 7 different men in his bedroom or something, and a goat's head, like crazy
oh,
stuff. And then Condit, the girl Levy, they searched for her in Rock Creek Park in the same place, and then all of a sudden her body just magically appears there. Like,
yes, shades of smiley face,
yeah,
right?
very strange.
And it's the same thing, with Jeff Buckley, because I told you that I've been doing, and I put some of this work both on the Patreon and both on Secret Sun, talking about some of the symbolism behind Jeff Buckley's death. But it was the same thing where they had boats, helicopters, you name it, out there dredging that not very large area of water, right? They couldn't find him for days, and then I think it was almost a week later, he washes up right off of Beale Street in Memphis there. It's like, where
Wow.
was he all that time?
I
That's
didn't
one
know
of the
he was
things.
missing for that long. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah,
I didn't know that.
several days he was missing. So, and that's, if you know that area, it's sort of a walled-in lagoon. You know what I mean? It's they had dammed off the Wolf River, which is a tributary of the Mississippi. They dammed that off, so it really wasn't that big of an area, especially with the amount of manpower that they had searching for him. And then he just pops up, and somebody on the American Queen riverboat spots his body. That to me is one of the things that, and it wasn't until I was really studying your work on Smiley Face that started to ring a bell to me. That really the strangeness of that struck a chord with me, because people drown in that area a lot. Okay, the undercurrent in that area is very dangerous, but they're usually found in pretty short order. You know what I mean? Because it's an active current, and an active current that's going to keep bodies aloft. You know what I mean? It's not like sinking into some pond or lake or something. The bodies are usually quickly found when people
Found within
drown.
24 hours. In the most recent case that I studied of Riley Strain, a body is found literally like 88% or to 95 are found within 24 hours, because they can just go, how far fast is the water moving? When was he last seen? Check here. You know what I mean? It's not
Hmm.
like it's not freaking calculus or something. It's not a super hard calculation.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that really got my attention. But the thing that I talked about was this strange ritual carnival, the Carnival Memphis, which has all these crews like in the Mardi Gras, but they're all named after Egyptian gods, and they have the crowning of Osiris and Isis during this big festival. And this festival was just starting just as he drowned. You know what I mean? So, and also you have the big pyramid there, right? The big it's Bass Pro Pyramid now, but
It didn't
also,
used to be. Yeah, it didn't used to be.
yeah, and also the Memphis Visitor Center is right there, and there's that statue of Elvis who's posed as Apollo. So they have Apollo, Elvis in the form of Apollo, literally overlooking the spot where he drowned. or he was
Wow.
last seen.
So he was found in the mud. That mud, you said, it was kind of like it's the, oh gosh,
Well, it's Mud Island.
Mud
So
Island, right?
yeah,
Mud
so
Island.
it's, you have the Mississippi, you have the Wolf River Lagoon, and in between you have Mud Island, and people go there for particular activities and so on. Yeah, there you go, right there, right there.
Right. So he was up this inlet, right? So that's
No, no, no,
supposedly.
no, 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 no. He was below the bridge. Zoom in a little bit more, because keep going, keep going. There's a monorail bridge. Okay, so there it is, right there.
Okay, is it this bridge right here?
It's
Hernando de Soto.
there's this. It's could
There's
you
the
zoom in
Memphis,
again?
Arkansas.
It's
Okay,
it's a
sorry.
small bridge. So that's the
A.W.
DeSoto
Willis
Bridge.
Bridge.
Well,
Okay.
that's the DeSoto Bridge, but there's the, see where the you keep going down.
Oh, this little mini one right here. Is
yes,
that it?
that's
Yeah.
that's exactly where he drowned.
Oh,
Yeah, it's the
wow.
monorail bridge. So
Wow.
it's a pretty small area. You know, even if you
Wow.
go all the way up the jetty there, it's still fairly small area. I mean, yeah, there it is.
That's the monorail. Wow. That looks pretty still to me.
Yeah. Well, there's a very very powerful undercurrent there,
Gotcha.
because you sort of have the meeting of these two bodies of water, and the Mississippi there. But right across the bridge is West Memphis.
Right. That same year that Eccles got arrested, his family was down at the bridge at a bonfire and somebody ended up dead right there, literally right there.
Oh
So
my goodness. So
yeah.
that's another thing that kind of struck me as interesting, that we have this very ritualistic event, obviously in West Memphis, not far from where Jeff Buckley drowned 4 years later, on May 29th. So we've talked about how the boys were murdered on solar Beltane, but also lunar Beltane, but also old Beltane. It was 3 Beltanes in one, right? Three for your money. Jeff Buckley drowned on what's called, in England, it's called Garland Day. And that's like some weird old, if you ever seen the movie Midsummer, it has that kind of vibe where they put this guy on horse and they drape him in all these flowers and so on that are shaped like a kind of like a beehive. It's obviously something that you can just tell came from some sort of human sacrifice ritual back in the old days.
Right.
There were these sacrifices, but the Romans on that same day, May 29th, used to make sacrifices to Poseidon. So you have that whole idea of, sacrifices to the water and so on. So it's all like very high. I mean, we could talk all week for all the symbolism that was surrounding this situation. What I was, and I've talked about that for many years, the situation that I was interested in now was this whole possibility of the smiley face involvement. Okay. But
so it really is right off of Beale Street. That's like the main street down there, isn't it?
yeah.
So literally, if you just shot straight off of Beale, that's where they found, somewhere around there, found Buckley's body. Wow.
Yeah. The whole thing was just, but like I said, there was just one eyewitness to this whole event. Our only accounting of his death comes from one person, and it was a person who had sort of insinuated himself into Buckley's circle through his tour manager. And when Buckley's band came in that night to meet up with Jeff Buckley, because he had just finished demos for a new album, the only person they came across is this guy. His name is Keith Fody. And they were like, who is this guy? Like, why is this guy telling us our friend is missing? They were like really freaked out by it. They didn't know anything about this guy. They didn't know why he would be with Jeff. It was all very strange. I mean, I don't want to cast any aspersions on the guy. I don't have any reason to suspect him of anything. But the thing is, at the very least, he, by his own admission, he wasn't paying attention. He wasn't paying attention to what was going on until he turned around.
And he just disappeared. Supposedly Buckley swam out and disappeared, right?
Well, what had happened specifically is that a tugboat came by, and Buckley, since he wasn't a good swimmer and he was fully clothed, was pulled under the water. See, it's shallow on the shores, and then it drops. There's a huge drop in where it gets very deep. And apparently, according to the story, he was just sort of swimming and not even, I probably wasn't even over his head, but he got pulled in by the wake of this tug. There's a very powerful undertow in that area. But the thing that really struck me is that, he seemed to me like a classic, in some ways, a classic smiley face victim. Okay. It seems like, and this happened 3 months after the first known death in New York.
Right, McNeil,
yeah. So this happened just 3 months later. So
were they out at night or during the day? Do you know?
it was at dusk.
Dusk. Wow,
It was
that's
at
really
dusk.
bad. Yeah, bad. Wow.
Yeah. So, but like I said, his account is the only one that we have. Now, as strange as this might sound, I mean, if he was being targeted, and you and I have discussed the possibility that there's military involvement or possibly, feds or police or whatever, official involvement in these killings. How hard would it be to just have somebody in the water and pull them under? Just pull him under. But the fact that his body went missing for several days and was found basically a block away from where he was last seen, that kind of gets me a little bit suspicious, particularly seeing, they had, like I said, they had helicopters, they had police boats, they had divers, there was a tremendous amount of manpower in the water trying to find this guy for days. And then he just shows up again, like I said, maybe 100, 200 feet from where he was found, or he was reported to go under the water. That's very strange to me. I don't understand how that happens.
Also in the center of like the city, they just had one, and it seems like the ones that are happening in Austin are because they're put in the city center. The most recent one, I don't want to mention his name out of respect to the family, but he was literally found, like if you were at City Hall in Austin and walked straight towards the river, he was found in between the kind of embankment and the water itself. Like it was almost like he was put there to be found, and also for the ultimate like shock value. Like it wasn't like because if you put your mind in the mind of the killer like that, you could just take the body and disappear him, 100 miles away, right? You could, in Texas or something, you could drive out in the middle of nowhere.
Well, this seems like there's just too much going on in Austin.
Tons. But I mean, I think the similarities there, like this is something where they found his body like right in the center of town, right? Like that's the whole thing about Austin too, is it's right off of Rainey Street, right? It's like their Beale Street. Something weird is going on in these cities. Yeah, very weird.
Well, this is why I speculated that there might be an Antonu cult involved. Antonu, for people who don't know, was basically the catamite or, boy lover of the Emperor Hadrian, who was famous for building Hadrian's Wall between Scotland and England.
And destroying Israel, right?
Yeah, he basically
finished it.
Yeah, he finished it off. It was started under, I believe, Vespasian, or Trajan. And
I think they were recurring. There was 70 AD, the fall of the temple, and then the Bar Kokhba revolt was put down by Hadrian.
Yeah. So when he had drowned in the Nile when he was 18 years old, and Hadrian apparently was so shattered by this that he made him a god, and he built temples all over the world, all over the known world. But the most popular version of Antonu as a god was Osiris Antonu, wearing like the traditional Egyptian headgear and so on. But there are a number. There's Attis, so on and so forth. But the most popular depiction of Antonu was as Osiris. So then it's been recorded. I mean, not necessarily the ritual murder aspect of it, but Antonu cults have persisted to this very day. You can go online and find websites of anti-nuke cults and so on and so forth. So it just struck me, if there was a ritualized aspect to this, in seeing the victimology, usually young men, often gay, often very accomplished, whether in school or it seems like there's a targeted profile.
Or gay ideal, right? Because I think the gay ideal, it's not as muscular. It's a little skinnier, and I think that
Swimmer's body is what they call it.
say that again.
Swimmer's body.
Swimmer's body, right? So, like Gilbertson said, like there's a standard mean of a male body's height and weight, and then the standard for the victims is a little to the left. It's skinnier than the standard, skinnier and thinner, I guess.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you see pictures of Jeff Buckley, he was very thin, and it sort of had almost like an Orphic nature to him, like Orpheus. He had that kind of vibe. So the fact that this took place as the Carnival Memphis was starting up, which does have this crowning of Osiris and Isis, that's sort of the centerpiece of this, really struck me as very strange. And then there's also the fact that his body went missing for several days, which is classic, as you know. The fact that there's only one eyewitness to all of this, and it was somebody who had sort of recently insinuated himself into Jeff Buckley's life, by the way. And not even, Buckley's band members knew him. Again, I mean, and I'm not saying this just to cover my ass or anything. I have no reason there's nothing in the evidence that would cast any kind of suspicion on this guy. But what I'm saying is that, make your own conclusions, really.
It's highly strange. His death is highly strange. It's very weird to happen like that. Dusk. I'm going to go for a swim. The sun's going down. See you guys. I mean, the whole story to me, in my opinion, is very sus. Just the whole susness of the story. Like, I'm going to keep my clothes on and keep my boots on and go on the water. I'm an important musician. I have a show tonight or tomorrow. Oh, let's go do something reckless. I'm all right at the cusp of fame,
Well, there's one caveat here, is that he was known for reckless behavior. And there was a near drowning accident where he and his girlfriend went into the very rough surf of Gold Coast Beach after a show. So he did have a pretty well documented ken for irresponsible, reckless behavior. I mean, that was everybody, when they heard that he had gone swimming at dusk, they were like, well, yeah, that's Jeff. That's not necessarily the part that bothers me. What bothers me, again, is like, nobody else noticed this. Nobody else saw this. I don't know, something makes me uncomfortable about it, particularly when all these people are coming into town for this carnival. You know what I'm saying? And that Mud Island, there's an area there that's very popular with tourists. There would have been a lot of people there. There were a lot of people at the Memphis Welcome Center. I mean, just the fact that we only have a single eyewitness for the death of a famous, up and coming rock star. You tell me.
So same evening, May 29th, 1997. So it's like, it's not cold. It's relatively spring to summer.
It's probably really warm in Memphis, yeah.
Buckley had vanished. June 4th, so he's found 5 days later.
Yes, but the weird thing about this, so I was working on this, okay? I was working on this whole presentation that I was going to do for my Patreon exclusively. And we were going to sort of maybe get into the weeds a bit, since it would be, in a closed environment, let's just say. But while I was preparing for this, I don't know if you heard about that guy up in Massachusetts who went around stabbing people. He killed his sugar daddy, it seems like, in Deep River, Connecticut. So there's the river again. Did you hear about this? There's a guy in, I called him the Braintree Buffalo Bill because 4 of the stabbings that he perpetrated were in my old hometown of Braintree, which is a whole other story that I go into the Endless American Midnight. But
I think it's on your blog, right?
yes. So this guy shows up, and everybody looks at this guy on Twitter and is like, "Oh my God, Buffalo Bill is real." You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
And but see, here's where the synchromysticism comes in. So I'm preparing to do this whole Jeff Buckley thing. This guy shows up. He's basically like a Buffalo Bill tulpa, practically. Stabs 4 girls at a movie theater. Stabs 2 more people at a McDonald's down in Plymouth. And this is after he murders basically the guy he was living with. It seems like there was sort of a sugar daddy relationship going on there. But so there's a lot of pictures of this guy circulating, right?
Jared Ravizza, was that his name? Jared, Ravizza, does that sound right?
Yeah. But so it was just so crazy. There were a lot of pictures of him circulating wearing the Nirvana smiley face T-shirt.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the guy who's a tranny, right? He's supposed to be a transsexual. Yeah.
Yes. So that's, I mean, the whole thing. Let me just see if I can get something open here, because.
Yeah, I did a show on Transition to Kill, like a play on Program to Kill.
Yeah. So
Jared, this guy fits all that. Yeah.
Yeah, Jared Ravizza. So, and everybody saw that picture and goes, "Oh my God, that's Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs," right there, right? That picture right there, and that's him being arrested down in Sandwich, Massachusetts, down on the Cape. But here's the interesting thing. So I'm doing this whole thing. He shows up in all these photographs wearing the smiley face T-shirt, right? And as it turns out, speaking of Buffalo Bill, Jeff Buckley's old roommate in New York was an actress named Brooke Smith. And I don't know if you know who Brooke Smith was, but she played Catherine Martin in Silence of the Lambs, meaning the girl who's imprisoned in the pit.
Wow.
In Buffalo Bill's house.
It puts on the lotion and keeps quiet. What did he say to her?
Yes.
Something about
puts the lotion in the basket. Yeah.
Right, that's right. Wow. So Jeff Buckley lived with her. Wow.
Yeah. So what are the odds of that? So this character manifests himself basically, and everybody's like, oh, Buffalo Bill. But of course, this is in my old hometown of Braintree, again, which is another. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff that I go into, pretty exacting detail in the Endless American Midnight on, as far as MK Ultra activity and so on. And when I was growing up,
you know the correlation or the connection between the smiley face on Nirvana and Burroughs, right? So it goes back to Burroughs. That's the smiley face connection goes back to Burroughs and Cobain's friendship with Burroughs, and they did a song together.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, no, I'll try to get the reference.
I did not know that. But if you just look up Jared Ravizza and Nirvana or whatever online, you're going to see pictures of him with that shirt on, and it's freaky. I mean, just the fact that this stuff is all happening at the same time, and happening while I'm,
crazy.
Doing this whole deep dive, no pun intended, into Jeff Buckley and Smiley Face. I mean, is this some sort of like karmic corroboration or something? I don't know, but the true synchronicity of it just really threw me for a loop. And there are a lot of other things that happened as well. That's him.
Sir, that's him before. He went some like schismogenesis. This is from Instagram in 2018. Looks like
Yeah, it's strange because he's trying to be a model and he was a surfer, and
next thing you know, that's
really
him. There's his Nirvana shirt.
Yeah, there it is right there. And it's to me, that's like the dead, because X's in cartooning means you're dead, right? So that's like the dead smiley face.
Right.
So
then he has the downward facing triangle. Like he really went through a whole transformation.
Yeah. It's
scary.
A freaky story. So this, like I said, this is going on. So, oh my goodness. And interestingly enough, too, I mean, it's going on, in the midst of the book being published and so on. The book on synchronicity being published, which is just a whole other story. Oh, and also his father's like almost like New Apostolic Reformation, like
Oh wow.
really hardcore, like
Noir.
almost like a nationalist.
Wow.
But he's really deep into like spiritual warfare and stuff like that. And it's like it's just so strange that and apparently Jared Buffalo Bill, as I call him, had attacked his father. So he was again known to the police, known to the authorities. They're always known to the authorities. I'm sure
Wow,
you
that's crazy.
don't
A
need a reminder of that.
licensed clinical therapist and a high flying international sports psychologist, Jason Ravizza. Wow.
Yeah. But again, the first murder that this guy commits, or actually the only murder, the other ones were attempted murders, but the murder this guy commits is in Deep River, Connecticut. So Deep River, obviously the connection to the Buckley
Right.
drowning, also the connection to Smiley Face in general, but there's also a connection to the David Lynch film Mulholland Drive, because the murderess character in that film comes from Deep River, Ontario. So there are all these just like layers upon layers upon layers going on.
He wrote a 2011 book, Waging the War Within, a devotional for winning the daily war. Wow.
Yeah, there it is right there. So there's
Wow.
so many strange layers here, you know, and it was all, fortuitous that I have all this in my mind, have all these charts that I used to use, these criteria that I used to use on how to evaluate synchronicity in order of significance is really the issue here. And this stuff just buries me
Yeah, no, that's incredible.
as it's going on. So, so much going on. But like I said, the book is really meant to help people sort this out, because people can lose it. It sounds a bit strange, but I've seen people just drown in the synchromistic waters, let's just say. Um, it can get overwhelming, particularly when you're new to it. And that's really why I wanted to give people a manual, user's manual, an instructional text to help people work with this stuff. And it was just the power of synchronicity that all this other crazy stuff is happening. Yeah, so there he is again. I mean,
Gosh.
this whole thing was
This is
just,
like a Cremo person who just went crazy and like absorbed all the symbology.
yeah, I mean, he's
Wow.
got the butterflies there.
The
Seems to have,
eyeball.
yeah, a
I mean,
lot.
the kind of hand signals, the mudras.
NASA.
Yeah.
Talking about ritual
Yeah, he's got
crimes, right?
the monarch or whatever butterfly, the blue butterfly. I don't even know
Yeah,
what it
that's
is.
a blue
Wow.
monarch, exactly.
Blue monarch.
But this guy
Wow.
had money. I don't know if it's from his father or something, but he was driving a Porsche. That picture was taken in Hawaii. He was living in Los Angeles. Seems to have gone around quite a bit. But he also seems like this, I don't know, like Jeff Buckley's evil twin or something. And this is
Wow.
the fact that we do have that connection via the whole Buffalo Bill motif to Brooks Smith. It's just
Off the charts.
off the
Right. So
charts.
this is like synchro mysticism, all, and it goes back. You said Downer, but there's also been a lot of guys who've been in the game back in the day. I thought of like the website Rigorous Intuition because you talked about being
Oh,
rigorous
Jeff,
about it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Jeff Wells.
Jeff Wells, yeah. That website had a huge influence on me. I've been trying to get him to start it up again, but
He
it
wrote a
takes a
book. I
lot of
think
time
there's
and
a book
energy.
there, Rigorous Intuition book too, with a very creepy cover of like I forgot it was Bush or Dick Cheney or something on the cover.
Yeah, well, he was doing a lot. I wouldn't necessarily say he was doing synchromistic work. His work was more parapolitical oriented,
Yeah, I think so.
more conspiracy parapolitical stuff. I mean, he did incorporate some synchromistic elements because it's kind of impossible not to, because of the way we're seeing this explosion of public ritual that even the most normies are starting to notice. If they haven't noticed, it's going on for 15 years now. If
Yeah.
people haven't noticed it yet, there's something wrong with them.
I put in kind of my blog on Twitter, like these standard, even the alternate medias. I mean, the corporate media is lost. Nobody even listens to TV or watches TV anymore. But the standard kind of alt media are starting to become more anointed, more paranoid, reading chaos, noticing Crowley, understanding they would never go there back in the day when they were trying to get interviewed on television or the corporate media. But
Well,
now that all of
they
them
weren't
got
allowed
kicked
to.
off, yeah.
It's when the gatekeepers lose their influence, all this kind of stuff that people were interested in all along. I mean, I'll give you a great example. One figure this is a historical figure that I've been reading up on, who was a very respected academic and cultural critic, but was really deep into the parapolitics and the symbolism, was Marshall McLuhan.
Really
And
interesting.
I can't help but wonder if his work with symbology and so on was helpful or informed his cultural criticism. Because he was going really deep. They discovered, like, he had a correspondence going on with Eric Vogelin. I don't know if you're familiar with that name.
No, it doesn't sound familiar.
But he was apparently, I think he was like a Tridentine Catholic, like pre-Vatican II, Latin Mass, and so on. And he was very upset when Vatican II came in and changed the Mass and changed a lot of the doctrine and so on. And he saw that as, the result of a conspiracy within the church, as did Malachi Martin. I don't know, you're probably familiar.
I know Malachi Martin. Yeah, was it Ghost in the Chamber or something? Or what was the book, like the Satanism was infiltrating Catholics?
Was it the Windswept House?
Windswept House, that's right. Good memory.
Yeah. And Keys to This Blood is another one. He used to be on Art Bell, of all places, a lot. But he's a very interesting character. But he had really pointed out the growth, not only of groups like P2 Masonry, which had infiltrated the church probably over 100 years ago by now.
Propaganda Due is like a Masonic lodge, or the number one Masonic lodge in Italy.
Yes, and Silvio Berlusconi, who was a longtime prime minister in Italy, was a member of that group.
That's what propelled him in, because he had connections with people in P2 who gave him cut rate loans at very low interest rates and allowed him to buy the entire media pretty much in Italy. And now that he was like a kind of a new version of fascism.
Yeah,
booga parties. He was something else.
Yeah, he was a strange dude. Or he is believe he's still.
Yeah, I think he's strange. There was all kinds of those. He had secret kind of eyes wide shut parties with a lot of North African girls, and then they all started getting poisoned and dying. Wow, what a surprise!
Yeah.
That's a whole nother podcast episode. Well, that's one I should do, because it's an important story. Like, it's all the dust is kind of settled, and Berlusconi's passed away, but he had a basically like an open, like he had kids from his mistresses and all kinds of. He was something else.
Yeah, he larger than life character.
Larger than life, yeah.
Yeah. But so, like I said, I mean, it seems to me, and it's something that I like to do some research into, is how much of McLuhan's parapolitical, conspiracy, symbology, esoteric, all these types of fields of research that he was really into. I mean, he was really into it too. I mean, it wasn't just like a hobby for him. He was very deeply into it. But it seems to me that would have given him a much keener insight on the mechanics of media manipulation and indoctrination. But
yeah, I think he was Canadian, right, McLuhan?
Yes, he was Canadian.
I think he was Canadian, and he was the guy who popped out at Woody Allen's movie, right? Was McLuhan?
Annie Hall.
Annie Hall, yeah.
So my interest in all of this kind of work, I hadn't been exposed to King Kill 33 until I'd been doing, like I said, my pre-synchromistic work for maybe about 2 or 3 years, but I had got into it because I've been studying Jung, and also Arthur Kessler wrote the book The Roots of Coincidence that had really helped popularize the whole concept of synchronicity. And of course, like all these new age gurus sort of latched onto it. And more recently, like the people who did that Hellier series, were when they couldn't find these gremlins that we're searching for down in Kentucky, then everything became synchronicity. So I don't know if you're familiar with those people. Are you familiar with Hellier?
Hellier? No, that doesn't sound familiar at all. Who's that?
So it's a guy named Greg Newkirk and his wife Dana. They did this. Actually, there are 2 different series on Amazon Prime, and originally it was going to be there were these rumors that there were these gremlins down living in mines, I believe down in Kentucky. But Alan Greenfield got involved with it too.
That dude's a known occultist, man. That guy.
Yeah, well, I think he's also kind of maybe let's be nice and call him a trickster. A lot of people had said that this whole boondoggle that these kids were involved with, there he is right there. But
never heard of this guy.
Yeah, you don't need to worry about it. But I remember my wife and I watched the first series, and it was like they were all they're going to find these gremlins. They're going to find these gremlins, and they didn't find anything, of course. And my wife was so angry. I thought she was going to kick the TV, and she was just so pissed off because, it was a total waste of time. And then after they don't find all this magical supernatural stuff, then all of a sudden everything's a synchronicity. But be that as it may, that's another thing that I'm trying to head off to with the Sync book is all these people who just do junk synchronicity work in order to sort of sell some product, or in this case, some sort of dopey documentary series or something. A bad synchronistic work really bothers me. It really offends me. I don't know if that's
and you kind of avoid numerology too. Like I have a guy who just sends me so many things of gematria that it's all real. Like he's literally like grinding mathematics of gematria, but it becomes jumbled. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's just some kind of numbers looking for some kind of meaning.
Yeah.
And
the way they torture language really bothers me. In order to get their results, they'll just say, dog, man, tree, puppy, goat, soap, and, just like string random words together just to get those reductions, those numerical reductions. I think that, I advise people away from gematria and numerology, specifically in this book. Maybe some people get some use out of it. I don't know, but I've just seen predominantly uninspired work using numbers. And as I quote, Bob Marley in the book, it's like, when you play with numbers, the devil wins because numbers go on forever. And that will really drive you crazy. That's like, I've seen it. I've seen people just become completely irrational beings because they played with those numbers. And that's something that I always advise people to avoid.
Yeah, no, it's definitely out there. I mean, I'm on social media often, and people, some of the stuff. I should really just start a file of some of the stuff I get sent. I used to keep a file. Well, I did keep a file of the West Memphis 3 kind of apologists, but I really should just kind of.
What's the status on the DNA thing now? I heard they got.
I don't know.
And
it's all for public consumption. It's nonsense.
Yeah.
It's really just part of the same, in my opinion, part of the same kind of agenda to solely the reputation of the state of Arkansas and the legal fraternity community there, because then it makes it look to the public like he was done wrong, and he got the short end of the stick, so to speak, or the short end of the stave, if you will.
Yeah, the short end of the pinion.
Yeah, the short end of the pinion, even better. That's an even better synchromystic because it ties into Broken with Peter Christopherson, right?
Yeah.
That's what he called that, by the way. It was called Pinion.
Wow.
Do you know that? That
No, I
broken
did
thing?
not know
Yeah,
that.
it's
I did
called
not know
Pinion,
that.
which is even super dark. Like it ties into Smiley Face Killings, BDSM, and it sinks into all those and the West Memphis 3. Let me see if I can find the reference.
Well, where's Genesis Peorage in all this? He usually shows up in those kind of
Well,
mixes.
he's in between Christopherson and Eccles, right?
Yeah. One thing I will say, and I'm kind of encouraged by it, is I think the fever for all that kind of left-hand path stuff is starting to wane. I think people are starting to get past it. Maybe, certainly not everyone, but I see that a lot of the people who are sort of curious or tourists or however you choose to describe them have seemed to be, cooling away, backing off from it. And interestingly enough, I mean, I don't know if you've been following this, but there's this whole like woke attack on the Greaves in the Satanic Temple, which I just find,
Interesting.
it's like those people can never be pleased, and as soon as you play on their court, they win always, and they're going
The
after him
wokesters?
they're going after him for being insufficiently woke. So, which
Okay.
is ironic because he started off, sort of in like extreme right circles. So
Interesting. He sent me some email talking about, trying to insult somebody's character on there, and it went straight to spam, so I missed it for like a month because I never talked to him. And I was like, "Hey, that's Doug. What's he sending me stuff?" But this is it. This is what I'm referencing. So 9 Inch Nails Pinion. That's actually the cover of my documentary on the Smiley Face Killers from 2017, right there.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, you know that Trent Reznor lived at Cielo Drive.
Cielo, right.
Recorded the Downward Spiral there. Of course, he signed Marilyn Manson.
I think they were recording together and were buddies at one time. And then
they did fall out, I believe.
There was his band, his follow-on band with his wife, Reznor's, is called How to Destroy Angels, which was a video of Peter Christopherson. It's a direct reference to Christopherson.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Have you seen the new documentary about hypnosis? Do you know what hypnosis was?
The Record Sleeves?
Yeah, Record Sleeves. There's a really good documentary on
what was that guy's name? There's a
Netflix.
Scandinavian fellow. What was his?
There were two guys who started it, but I mean, back in the day, it's probably before a lot of my listeners' time. But record albums, the art on a record album was very important. It was crucial, actually.
Yeah, because
there wasn't no digital media like it is today. So they put a lot of time and effort, and bands would pay a lot of money, and really created during its time in the 60s and 70s memorable art that was incredible. And one of the art companies that specialized in album art was called Hypnosis. And one of their kind of first hires, these two guys whose names I can't remember right now, one of their first hires was Peter Christopherson. And in that documentary, they're like, yeah, he did a good job. We had no idea about how dark he was. like they realized it later. Like he was like, taking pictures of corpses and living. And actually he worked as an undertaker, like as a part-time job. Hey, no, I don't want to flip burgers. I think I'm going to go work at the, work with cadavers and stuff. But
yeah, that whole milieu, because that also ties in people like Michael Moynihan,
right? Yeah, that's
Lloyd Rice,
right? Yeah,
you know what I mean. There's that whole circle.
It's kind of the neo-Nazi satano crew.
Well, that's why I was so shocked when Messner came out and did like woke Satanism with the Satanic Temple, because I always so like being the age I am, the age you are as well. It's like I remember back in the 80s, somebody said they were Satanists, like 2 sentences later, they're like, oh yes, and I'm a Nazi too. So it's like the two sort of went together, and this whole idea of woke Satanism, I just thought was just so like what?
It's kind of funny, right? Yeah,
it was grotesque, but it's also, like I said, I think it's going to be the end of Greaves and his whole racket, because he didn't realize that he was playing in the piranha pool. You know, everybody comes in thinks they can control these wokesters. They just don't realize that
Can't do it, huh?
they are beyond your control, beyond your control.
And they're never stop. They're merciless, right? You have to conform or die, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the goal really is to get people to kill themselves. Really, I mean, that's been pretty well documented, pretty well attested, that they will harry you on social media, and they'll call your employers and
Right. Get
and
you
all this stuff,
fired, right?
just try to destroy you to such an extent that you kill yourself. And interestingly enough, there was a cartoonist who recently killed himself who had been targeted by the wokesters.
I heard
It's
about that.
really bad in like comic book, sci-fi, that whole milieu, that whole genre, the woke stuff. And the woke stuff is starting to ease up in the general culture, but it's still going full bore in comics fandom and so on. So
And
this
they
guy,
had, yeah, didn't they have that? Sorry, please continue.
oh no, I was just going to say this. So this guy named Ed Piskor just recently killed himself because he had been targeted by the ringleaders, who have made no bones. I mean, they'll come out and say that they want you to kill yourself. That's their goal. That's their entire modus operandi.
But didn't he have like some kind of sexual thing, like with a woman, or he sent somebody something nasty, and that was it? Like
it was so innocuous and ambiguous. I mean, I read up on that, and he was being a creeper, but it wasn't. It could have all been like sarcastic or ironic. It was so mild, comparatively to some of the things that these woke people have gotten away with. But here's an interesting thing. So at the same time, the wokes were targeting this guy named Ed Piskor who killed himself. They're also targeting this cartoonist called Stone Toss, who is on. I don't know if he's still on Twitter, but he was on Twitter, and he just basically said, "Screw you! I don't care what you say. I'm just going to do what I do." So it's almost like fragile versus anti-fragile. The kind of reaction. I mean, the best way to, if you ever get targeted by these people, is to go on the attack as hard as you can, because most of them are extreme cowards and will wilt under the pressure. Which is, I mean, this guy didn't go on the attack against him, but he was just very much like, "Screw you! I don't care what you say. I'm just going to do whatever." But like I said, I do think that is starting to wane. But we are going to be dealing with a whole new set of problems because, like I said before, I really do think that we're in World War III right now. It's the early days. It's sort of the build-up, but it's very much happening.
Wow.
Oh, so Buffalo Jared Revisa used to work for his family sports psychologist hypnosis company. Yeah.
Well, there it is again.
The Chicago Cubs attribute the Revisa company for ending their World Series curse.
That's JJ. Hey, JJ, welcome.
Have you noticed that with a lot of cases of people sort of going off the rails? One of their parents is like a psychotherapist.
Yes.
Like what is that all about?
I don't know, man. There's some like software out there somebody's utilizing. I mean, there's a lot more hypnosis than you might think. Like I was just reading the other day. Do you know that Mike Tyson, he had that famous kind of boxing coach, the old guy, Gus D'Amato. Gus D'Amato would take him to a hypnosis, and there's the opposite of kind of a trance. It's called powerization, and a guy, William Joseph Bryan, used to do it, who was, Sirhan, all these other people. Really incredible connections on that guy. But he used to take Tyson to get powerized to make him more ruthless in the boxing ring. And it sure seemed to work, yeah. That's a fairly recent article, so, it's... I've said hypnosis is the Rosetta Stone of like the post-World War 20th century, and I will stand by that and debate anybody at any time.
Well, it starts with Mesmer, right? I mean,
it goes all the way back. It goes back to the 19th century. So they have different names for it, different things, but like the scientific application really didn't start probably until Estabrooks in the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the one who wrote books like splitting, he could split people's brains. He could make people be good kind of reminders, or they could only remember stuff during hypnosis. So they would basically be delivery people, or whatever the proper word is. So like, you'd remember something, somebody'd ask you, you wouldn't remember, but under hypnosis you would. So you'd be a delivery guy of secret information. So he did all that stuff back in the 30s and 40s. And he actually said, and I think it's accurate, is his quote is that hypnosis will be the determinant of a future. It'll be the running code for future societies if people know how to work it right. And he's right, because all the hitmen in the 60s were all hypnotized. All the guys involved in MLK, RFK, and JFK had all gone through. And that's kind of the secret thing about Oswald that a lot of people don't key into, is the guy was going under hypnosis. He was controlled by guys who were hypnotizing him. That's what's crazy. And he was known to have been hypnotized at a party with DeMoor and Schilt, and Jack Ruby had hypnotists at the Carousel Club, amateur hypnotists. They're all over the place. And Ferry was an amateur hypnotist. He knew how to do post-hypnotic suggestion. There's no question about it. So he's in the control of Ferry when he was 15 in the cap, right? All the way, and he died at 20 when he was 24. But they were trying to take him. Ferry and what's the guy's name from the movie who's played by Tommy Lee Jones? Anyway, that character, they took him to like a medical facility and tried to get him a job there, and that's exactly what Esterbrook said, is like, you can have a stable of hypnotic subjects for your use out of like an area. And that's exactly what Chapman was. Chapman was working. Chapman, who killed John, these are all quotes, killed John, was literally kind of in a working stable of hypnotic subjects in Hawaii. And all these strange travels, like, okay, I'm just going to get on a plane, I have no money, and freaking go to New York City and hang out.
Well, have you heard the story where Kenneth Anger claims that Chapman has come up to him?
Gave him a bullet, right?
Gave him a handful of bullets and said, these are for John Lennon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
But have you heard that Sean Lennon has said, and this is apparently has been going on for a while, that the real shooter was in, I don't know if he was in the lobby or at the door of the Dakota, like that Lennon was actually shot by somebody from a different
angle. Yeah, there's no question. And it was actually a very close, according to the coroner's report, the accurate one is that it was a tight series of shots. I think you're supposed to aim for where the heart pumps out blood, not where it comes in, so that you die immediately, because the blood is just, it stops pumping. Your heart will continue to pump, maybe, but it's not going to pump accurately. And that's where it was. It was a tight unit here. There's blood, like there's a picture of John Lennon's blood inside a kind of atrium or an inside room. So the common perception is that he was shot at the entrance to the Dakota, and that's not true. I mean, just like all these other things, it's all just fantasy, man. Literally, the whole the TV has. I mean, we can get to this is off topic, but basically, when you go to your TV to hear your stories about these assassinations, the average person has been programmed. There's no question about it, in a subtle, low-level hypnotic way. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I was very much programmed by the whole Paradise Lost thing, just like everyone else. And I actually got I got 2 of those West Memphis, those CDs, the one that Henry Rollins did, and then the other one. So I bought into that without question. Those propaganda films, those Paradise Lost propaganda films.
I thought when they got out in 2011, I thought that there was some kind of legal error. I literally just was like, okay, I didn't really know. I didn't look into the West Memphis 3 at that time, but I had just come out of finishing my Crowley book. And then it was like, I saw a video on YouTube with Magic and Theory of Practice on the table of the prosecutors. I was like, what? Because I remember seeing the original Paradise Lost in probably 96 and just forgot about it, And then it was like, you want to talk about some kind of synchromystic event, because the timing was incredible. Like right at when I'm done just doing a very thorough dive on Crowley, I hit this video because I was researching Children of the Beast. And I was actually stopped writing that book to write Abomination. It was during that, like I'd just gotten done. It was, do you want to talk about like alignment of stars or God opens? I watched that right at the right where I knew everything about Crowley. And then I was looking through all that stuff. So all that occultism stuff was fresh in my mind, and it was all there in all the court documents that I had nothing to do with. Somebody else compiled them, but it was all the occultism was there and all the stuff on the social media. And it was pretty obvious what was going on.
Right. And Berliner, you know, the main guy who made those films also did one of the Blair Witch sequels. Too.
Right. Berlinger and Berlinger still around. That Blair Witch.
Away.
No, the other one, Sinofsky, died of
Sinofsky, right.
But Berlinger, that main character was based off of Eccles in the Blair Witch, you know, follow on, which apparently wasn't very good.
Well, I'll tell you something right now. I didn't really get sort of worked up about West Memphis. I mean, it's something that I'd sort of, quote unquote, been red pilled about a few years ago, maybe 2018, as late as that I really started looking at it in depth. And it wasn't until they had that character in Stranger Things that was allegedly based on him that I just felt motivated to do something, you know, to share the research that I'd done, you know, with the public, you know, because I was very angry, very, very angry, you know.
And they whitewashed him, right? He became the hero, and he was also, his name was like a 5 and a 6 too, right? Something like something.
Eddie Munson, I think.
Eddie Munson, that's right.
Yeah. You know, I'll tell you something. This is a total side road here, but the first Stranger Things to me is one of the best things ever done on television, and the sequels are all abominations. And one thing, when the second one came out, you know, a friend of mine had discussed that we felt that they had gotten the talk. You know, that the producers of Stranger Things, that they said, okay, all right, you had your little sleeper hit. We weren't really expecting this. You know, we weren't expecting you to come out with all this MK Ultra stuff. But this time, there are going to be some changes around here, boys.
Yeah, if you want to stay on Netflix, I bet.
Yeah, and it just went down. And then, you know, they started doing all the Cold War stuff and, you know, following the whole, you know, neocon agenda, you know, the war with Russia and so on. So,
right.
There you go.
Russian baddies, all that crap.
Yeah, it gets really hard. See, one of the reasons why the gaslighting has gotten so bad is that it's just become more and more difficult to get away with things today. And particularly when you're saying like people who sort of dropped out of positions in the mainstream media are starting to get into some of this deeper, darker stuff, right? You know, it's created a real problem. It's created a real problem.
Yeah, it has. I mean, Tucker Carlson's progression is very strange. He's still kind of what's, you know, a sign of a very wealthy family. He's really an American aristocrat, I think. But some of the stuff he talks about,
Newport.
Like, pardon me?
He's from Newport, Rhode Island.
Is that like a super nice? I don't have any idea.
That's
about
like, yeah. It was actually founded by slave traders back in the day.
Well, it makes sense. But he's like a Swanson or whatever heir. I know that. But there was a funny clip of him when he went to interview Putin, and he had these carts, and he was really shocked that you could take a quarter and slide it into the grocery cart and unchain it and walk around like that. He thought that was the most brilliant piece of like technology. And I just went, you've never shopped for freaking groceries in your life, dude. You're like 55. You've never. The fridge has always been full at your house. But anyway, he was talking about aliens too as demons or whatever. So like weird stuff that like has already been talked about online, like stuff that I've talked to Charles Upton and stuff. But that's very strange for him. Like he's kind of, I don't know how far off the reservation, but if I had a kind of somebody who wanted to infiltrate the new media, who had old media kind of pedigree and kind of could still relate to some of these kind of new media people, Carlson would be a good pick, you know.
Well, there is also that possibility But there's also the possibility that they're just following what the audience wants.
Well, that's true. Good point. Yeah.
It's 50-50.
The
I
old
think,
media is dead. The old media. No, I don't know anybody intelligent who watches TV news or anything.
yeah, I don't even, I've cut the cord, how many years ago now? 6 or 7 years ago. I mean,
By
that's
the way, Huggy Bear says Winona Ryder's bizarre facial expression at the Stranger Things SAG Awards. She is a West Memphis 3 supporter. I have a picture of her. I don't have my hard drive hooked up, but I have a picture of her with all these kind of West Memphis 3 supporters. So she was a little bit behind. And she's also the real daughter of Timothy Leary's archivist. I forgot what his real name was, but
Michael
she
Horowitz.
Horowitz, good memory. But I'm almost positive that those guys at Stranger Things have listened to all my earlier talks back in the early 2010s, because all that stuff is integrated into those first six episodes. In the final episode, when the big baddie, demon comes out, they literally show a smiley face on that couch. I was like, okay.
Oh, I did not notice that.
Yeah.
So let me tell you something about Winona, though, that I found really interesting. Before she got the role for Beetlejuice, which was sort of her big break, she was in a film that was produced by Michael Nesmith of the Monkees. Okay? And actually, they dated.
That's right.
He was 45, she was 15, and they dated. And he later said that he was in love with her and he would do anything for her and so on. And it was just like really inappropriate. But the connection here, talk about the synchronicity, is that, Song to the Siren plays into the whole Jeff Buckley mythos. And that song was first premiered on the very last episode of the Monkees. Okay? So there are all these little strands tying together. Like I said, we could do a solid week marathon based on this whole story and still not even scratch the surface of it.
Yeah.
But the fact that she dated Michael Nesmith when she was 15 is just like, what are these people doing? What is going on? And
crazy.
They're actually, you can find pictures of the two of them together.
Nesmith was the heir to the whiteout fortune. I don't know if you know.
That's correct. Liquid paper. Yeah,
liquid paper. This is a picture of Winona Ryder. They had these group out of LA who were very vociferous West Memphis 3 supporters, and they were known as the KGB based upon the first letters of their last name. But that's her with them. And then also that is Jesse Miss Kelly's attorney, who actually did a really good job. But he just wrote a book called Harvest of Innocence. So he's still kind of towing the line. That's Dan Stidham. But this is an old picture, so this is probably 20
Well,
years
that's
old.
disappointing. That's disappointing to hear. But like I said, I bought into the whole mythos for years myself. It was really, honestly, it was really all the synchronistic work that got me to break the code, so to speak.
They put up they had a great front. They had all the stuff down, and they're very skilled propagandists, and so people shouldn't feel bad because they would always hammer the similar point and get it through to very pliable journalists, which is he was convicted for a crime he didn't commit. They would almost every article or anything that went out in public, any type of interview, that first sentence was always at the beginning. Damien Eccles convicted for a crime he didn't commit. They just say that every time. It's like he's still guilty. It's June 18th, 2024. The guy's still
guilty. He's been convicted twice.
Yeah, come on.
It's ridiculous.
They all admitted it too, by the way. The original court proceeding in 1994 had people on the stand who heard him say, I did it at a softball game. He said he did it. I'm going to kill 2 more. So you have to just say that those kids are lying, and that's what they've done. They've kind of like tried to position all the original evidence. But
well, again, I think the thing that really put me on this case, though, is that at the time I was really doing a lot of work on the Jeff Buckley thing, and I was like, oh wait, West Memphis, right across the river. And the thing that really freaks me out, though, is everybody's like, oh, West Memphis is like deep Appalachia or something, forgetting that it's part of a major metropolitan area. Like
It's
these
just
people are all
over. It's
pumpkins.
right over that bridge I showed earlier, the DeSoto Bridge.
Yeah, it's right over the river. And
The West Memphis Three Guys were known to go into the city. They didn't just kind of live in West Memphis. They used to have a friend over there they would visit. So it's kind of nonsense like, oh, they were just like stuck there. Used to travel around. I mean, maybe walking or something like that, but there's all kinds of stuff in the court records.
well, the way that the films frame it is that they were being, because the heavy metalheads, 1993, nobody knew anything about heavy metal in
Right.
West Memphis, right? It was just completely
Right.
foreign. It was just sort of like, what is this music? What is this devil's music? Um,
I think I went to a Metallica concert in 1980, Day on the Green, 1983. Like that's like almost 50 years ago.
in Memphis.
No, it was in San Francisco.
Oh, okay. So,
But like
I'm just saying,
they were from Northern California where I was from. They were from Oakland. But they used to play kind of not huge stadium venues like now, but like be part of like a 10 band outfit.
sure,
But,
sure, yeah,
that was when they had the original bassist,
yeah. I remember those days.
Cliff Burton. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I said, the way those films made it seem like these poor kids in the middle of like tar paper shack Appalachia, with all these country bumpkins running around. It was so absurd. In the face of it, it's just so absurd, and such the gall of the revisionism of it all. I mean, it's just brash and blatant revisionism, but that's what sells. I mean, it's all about constructing narratives, really. It really is about, if you want to manipulate people, if you want to steer people in certain directions, you need to learn how to construct narratives. And the people behind those films, I don't know what their training was, but they were very highly effective at it. I don't know if they had other people involved with it, but I got to tell you something. I mean, that whole period, that was what, 2 weeks after Waco?
I think you're right. Yeah.
It was, I think, no, wait, 3 weeks. 3 weeks after Waco. Let's see, 11 days. Yeah, 2.5 weeks after Waco. So that was a very strange time. And the fact that it was Arkansas, I started to think about the Clintons, because I know people who are involved, like in the military and the whole MENA thing, and 93,
Right.
knowing
Waco siege was February 28th, 1993. So
no, but the actual end of it was April 19th.
That's right. You're right.
And just this past year, do you remember that guy who immolated himself at the park across the street from the Manhattan Criminal Court on April 19th?
Wow.
So that whole thing is.
Yeah, I saw you posting about that. They used to have that Medusa statue.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's the thing I keep saying. It's like, okay, they're going to pay tribute to Me Too and to women who have been victimized by these horrible Hollywood sexual predators and everything, and they're going to do that by putting a statue of a fully naked woman in the middle of a public park. It's like, what?
Right.
Come again? Run that by me again? It's just,
Right.
but it's Medusa is very heavily ritualistic and very much tied to this whole cultism that I've been looking at. And so.
I think it'd be worthwhile to do a study of like sculptures from the Gilded Age in New York City to the present, to just see how it's all changed, what the statues they got rid of and what they put in their place. Because there's a Medusa, there was a Baal like arch, like at one point, I think in Central Park, like
no, yeah, it was Washington Square Park, yeah,
Washington Square, like nothing like. Crowley lived on Washington Square, one Washington Square when he was there, which I think back in that age was a kind of a Tony upscale area. I don't know what it is.
Well, it is again.
Still the same.
Yeah,
I live on the West Coast.
He did the Amalantra working on 38th Street and 7th Avenue, and that was my old stomping grounds when I used to work in the garment industry.
Interesting.
So, and also another thing that I got a lot of mileage at was that weird that golden demonic idol that they put on top of the courthouse outside of Madison Square in Manhattan. It's like
Yeah,
these
there was that. Yeah, that's right. There was that weird golden, and didn't they have like a series of like statuaries that were really creepy too on top of another building? Just like weird choices
Yeah,
over and
yeah.
over
I've
again.
done a lot of work on that. I've done a lot of
Okay, I
work
gotta
on
check
that.
that out. That's at your blog, Secret Sun, the secretsun.blogspot.com.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's probably why it comes to mind, is because I probably saw all of your sculpture references on your Twitter posts. Is probably why that comes to mind. Why I know that stuff, actually.
Well, when you talk about hypnosis, I don't know if you've seen some of these videos coming out of these raves that they have, these big electronic music festivals, when that music is talk about hypnotic. I mean, that's beyond hypnotic. It's like ding, 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 it's just hitting those alpha and beta waves in the brain straight on, and then they put all this like imagery, giants and demons, and just all this like really unsettling and sick and disturbing um,
I haven't seen
imagery.
that, but I did do a show on Astro World, and
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
was really something else. That was the number one watch listen show on Mysterious Radio. Pretty big podcast. I did a show with K Town. She
Well, let
said
me
that was
give
her
you
number one show.
another connection right here, though. So the Smiley Face murders start in '97, but that we know of, right? And that kid McNeil, right?
McNeil, who went to school at Fordham.
Fordham, exactly. Now, what's going on at the same time in '97? That's when rave culture is really starting to get mainstream acceptance. And what was the symbol of rave culture in the '90s? The smiley face, right? So you kind of have to wonder. And it seems to me that, like, the kind of people who would be drawn to like an anti-new cult would probably be really interested in rave culture and so on and so forth. So that might be the way to, I don't want to say to break the case, to solve the case, but certainly to maybe unlock some of the symbolism behind these murders.
My understanding is a lot of the people who propagated the rave culture were into the occult and used the raves as fronts for their drug selling, so they could sell MDMA or whatever, ecstasy or whatever
That
they
is
wanted.
absolutely true. That is absolutely
So
true.
it wasn't just some kind of like, oh, let's play some music. It was, let's play music, get people in, let's hypnotize them and give them a bunch of drugs, and we'll
Hmm.
make money.
Hmm.
We'll make money the whole way through. And then maybe in the stories of how many people or young men have come out of raves or band playing is legion. There's hundred, like a quarter of the cases are guys who were at things. There were just one last year at one rave place in the boroughs of New York City. The three guys found in water in the span of a month, and it's in my
Well,
new
that
book.
might be where they're being targeted, at
Yeah,
these raves.
yeah, I think you're right.
I mean, I'm not exactly sure because the victimology seems to go a bit deeper than that. But there is, I think that is, if not a way to, again, not to solve the case, but certainly a major break, that these killings are really coinciding with this huge push to mainstream rave culture, techno, and so on. Because it really started in England in the late '80s when it was called acid house. But people, we talked about Genesis P. Orridge. He was very much involved in the beginning of that whole movement with his Temple of Psychic Youth. So he was very much part of that. I want to say he was a driving force necessarily, but he was certainly very highly influential. So there definitely was that layer of occult, transgressive, underground, demi-monde type of milieu feeding into this whole movement. It wasn't just a bunch of kids just getting high and partying. It was,
Right.
something went a little bit deeper, And interestingly enough, the big album that really broke the whole techno thing in the US was an album called Fat of the Land by Prodigy, who also were known to use smiley faces in their iconography. But it was the album cover is like this crab sort of coming at you out of the water. So there's that water symbolism again.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So it's really, it's very complex. But I think that if the one thing that concerns me about the smiley face, though, is that it just seems like they're just getting more brazen about it. You know, we talked about the
Yeah.
situation in Austin and so on.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
it's a
unsettling.
slaughter in Chicago too, right? Just a total, like I called it, what did I call it? Like a rampage. It's close to like a rampage in Chicago. Like it's so obvious that it's happening. They started covering up the cases. The authorities actually covered up the cases in Austin. No question in my mind, and Chicago and Boston. They do not want to get the public to get worked up.
Well, I'll tell you something else that really struck me is that, you know, you mentioned Riley Strain, but just a few weeks earlier was the Lakin Riley case. The girl who was murdered by, was he Guatemalan or Honduran or something, down in somewhere in Georgia.
Georgia, I think. Yeah.
And there was another Riley that I'm blanking out a bit, but there were like three major weird, you know, deaths of young people with the name Riley sort of clustered together. And like I said, Lakin Riley and Riley Strain are the two that really come to mind offhand. So
Yeah, no, I think they were a month apart. Like hers was February 22nd, and I think he disappeared March 9th, maybe. I don't know.
oh, so that's a question a couple weeks.
Yeah, let me see. Riley Strain.
That whole situation was surreal and horrible, though. It's, you know,
Yeah.
kind of watching this take place in real time.
Yeah, left March 8th was when he disappeared.
And where was he found?
2 weeks later. So
What was the date?
22nd. The 22nd or 23rd.
So right around the equinox, in other words.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So but that's what you know, when you any kind of these cases, whether it has the symbolism attached, but look at you know, where it happens, when it happens. 322. Yeah, so that's the equinox, right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Look at those kind of specifics, because if you want to start to deconstruct the symbolic narrative that's being constructed, start looking at all these details. And again, that book that we keep seeing on the screen here, I spell it out in detail how you can start to look at a lot of cases that might get your instincts a little riled up, you know, might not pass the smell test for you. Just start breaking it down. Just start breaking down the details. Because, like I said, the symbolism is just getting more and more blatant, more and more
Yeah.
obvious so often, not only in like some of these deaths, but in, like I said, these public rituals, the rituals that they do at the Super Bowl, or they do at the Oscars, or the Emmys, or the Video Music Awards. Those seem to be a very popular venue for a lot of this kind of thing. And it's so obvious that everybody can just sniff it out right away.
Right. I have a question for you. What are your best syncs? What are the best things that kind of set you off? Like you say that oftentimes you try to meditate or get good sleep or something to kind of help your mind kind of float across all the different symbolism and stuff like that. What do you, I mean, you've been studying this for decades. What do you think some of the most interesting ones offhand, if you can, scan your memory banks?
That's tough because there are just so many.
So many.
The list is legion. I could.
What about anybody else's work? I mean, you said that Vigilant Citizen kind of, they were maybe not as
well. He lifted a lot from me.
lifted stuff.
He lifted a lot. So he came along, or they came along. I believe it's somebody had done a post somewhere and said that was the work of this viral marketing team up in Montreal. So I can't confirm that, but they used to have a lot of corporate advertising through Google Ads. I mean, you'd go to Vigilant Citizen, there'd be Ford, Chevy,
Oh wow.
Maytag, Sears, Walmart. You know, all the big corporate sponsors would be on that site. He really lifted a lot of stuff from me, but he lifted a lot of stuff from mainly there was this kid named Ben Fairhall, this kid from England. He was in high school at the time.
Wow.
And he had a site called, he had a site called Battling the Behemoth, and then he changed the name to Pseudo Occult Media. But all the stuff with Monarch and the beta kittens and the butterflies and all the rest of that symbolism that Vigilant Citizen really took to the bank was lifted lock, stock, and barrel from this kid.
Wow.
And everybody would like say, like, Ben, why are you letting them get away with this? And what is he going to do? You can't copyright ideas, you know. You can't claim ownership to, you know, a field of interpretation. So he just kind of got screwed, unfortunately.
It happens a lot. There's a lot of lifting of. I've had guests on where somebody said, "This guy, you cannot have him on because he took my whole thread." You know, he was a kind of a. I'm not going to name names. They're accusations, and I've actually had situations where there's credible, which I'm not aware of, but at the time somebody says those are credible that this guy's ripped my ideas off, and it's kind of it doesn't come to the public, but I've had to kind of like officiate behind the scenes, which is a real pain in the ass. So it is a common occurrence, and I've been ripped off. My first book, the most dangerous book in the world by S.K. Bain. I just will see all my research on there. It's just sitting there. It's like unbelievable. And the guy went out and did all the shows and stuff, and I'm just like, this is so sick. I cannot even believe that people are listening to this guy. But
plagiarism is the sincerest form of flattery, my friend.
I'll tell you, I hope that. I mean, they took money out of the mouths of my kids and credit, so they can help hell. Bain and that monster over at Trine Day, they can help burn in hell as far as I'm concerned.
Trine Day? Are they still around?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they published that blackmail book. That sold a lot of stuff. So they're still around, still working.
Yeah, I kind of dropped out of a lot of that stuff.
Do you have time for a few questions, Chris?
If people got questions, I'm ready.
Okay, Coyote asks, is synchromysticism compatible with Christianity?
It's synchromysticism is a methodology. You don't need to subscribe to any belief system or credo to work with it. It's simply a methodology. It's simply a way of interpreting data that we're being bombarded with all the time. You know, I mean, even in the non-physical realm. I mean, all these waves. You know, these wireless waves are going through our body all the time, and we're just being pummeled with this stuff. I know there were a lot of Christian synchromystics in the early days. I think there are still some working today. So it doesn't matter what your belief system is, because it is just a tool. It's just a way of organizing data.
Gotcha. And Big asks, any connections with Walt Disney? Is that something that's come across your mind?
Oh, well, where do you start? I mean, Disney is the entertainment behemoth of all time. They have their fingers in everyone's pie. So that's too broad a question really to tackle here.
Gotcha. Slick asks, does Chris see a blurring of definitions of the term astrotheology, star-based myths getting hubristically fused to alien narrative?
I'm not familiar with the term hubristic. But so I've done a lot of work with the stars, particularly the Book of Revelation, which I believe is filled. I mean, not only openly, but also the symbolism is pretty blatant when you start to line it up with star maps and so on. But the thing that I have a problem with a lot of people who do astrotheology, and I've always had a problem with it because it doesn't really explain why these ideas and these stories would be so important to people. Because I think what happens is that a lot of people who've done work with astrotheology, they either don't understand or they minimize the influence of ritualism. And once you start to do that, I think you really lose track of how people in the ancient world thought. Because the thing you need to understand about the sun, moon, and stars in the ancient world is that was their clock. that was their calendar. That's how they understood the passage of time. I met him in Deep Ellum.
Glitch said he met Buckley 6 months before he died. In Deep
Oh,
Ellum.
okay.
Deep Ellum's like the north part of Dallas, kind of like the avant-garde, or I don't know.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
That's an interesting story.
The Austin part of Dallas, I guess.
Okay.
So,
all right. Cool.
Good
story.
Yeah, so that's about it. I mean, you've done a lot of work, recent work. You talked about the Antennas Cult. You did, I think, a full presentation on your Patreon, so people can go check that out, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I put about a 20-minute excerpt up on that, but that whole thing was just the one thing about synchromystic work is that you would think, since I've been doing it for so long, that I would get jaded, but I'm constantly shocked. I'm constantly surprised. I don't get jaded. I'm not, I'm not over it all. There was a period of time when I stopped doing synchromystic work because I was ill, and it takes a lot of time and energy to really do, at least at the level that I do it. But I sort of got sucked back into it, as my regular readers and listeners know, with the death of Chris Cornell. So that was a huge, and Cornell was also very close with Buckley. And that's really what got me on, because I had done stuff on the Buckley thing back in 2008, right, on the blog. And then I'd done a little bit more on it in 2014, and people kept writing me like, do more, are you going to do more? Because the anniversary of his death was coming up and everything. And I was like, what could I possibly write? I have no idea, but it turns out it's almost a bottomless well. It just seems to be one of these weird axial points in history that doesn't seem significant to people on the face of it, but somehow will, I believe, in the future, people will see these footnotes really of the death of these rock stars is more important in the future. And a lot of it is, rock stars were marketed, in the 60s as basically as substitute deities.
Right.
And, particularly with like the stadiums, and, when you have these huge shows in stadiums and arenas and everything, before people, before MTV sort of disenchanted everybody and sort of took all the mystique out of it. I remember, you remember going to concerts before MTV sort of took hold, and that was your, if that was your favorite band, that was your only experience that you had, because there weren't music videos on television all the time, maybe here and there once in a while. There was no internet,
it's a much bigger thing. Yeah, it was a much bigger thing going to those things. My first concert was Journey. I forgot who opened for them, but I think I was in the 8th or 9th grade, so that's 1981. And it was like incredible, like that was a big, it was a big thing to do. It wasn't just like a casual event.
Well, I'll tell you a story. My first concert was the Doobie Brothers in 1978. I was 12 years old. I just turned 12. And we were driving down. It was in Providence, Rhode Island. I was living in Massachusetts. We were driving down to Providence, Rhode Island. All of a sudden, the car has a flat. We pull over to the side of the road. This is going to get synchromystic in just a minute. We pull over to the side of the road, and like minutes later, it was shocking. A cop comes over and looks at the tire and said, "You people are going to have to stay here. There's a bullet hole in your sidewall." Wow. Somebody was on the side of the highway shooting at cars. And then, so we're sitting there with a cop, and then somebody else pulls up in front of us and like, what's going on? And it turns out it was my friend and his brother. They're next door neighbors, and they were going to the same concert. So we all piled in, like, get in. We all piled into this car and went down to Providence to see the show. But that was 1978. There was a lot of crazy random violence like that up in Massachusetts. I don't know what it was like out in California, but
there were certain things dangerous, there was always kind of certain parts were very violent, and just the way it was, but I don't know. I think downtown San Francisco is super violent now, but There were definitely no-goes, Hunter's Point or East Palo Alto or things like that. You just kind of.
Well, I went, the last time I was in San Francisco, gosh, was 2009. And I was just shocked by how different the city seemed back then. It just seemed dark, like very dark and very cold and gray, just very unwelcoming. I used to love San Francisco. I used to love going
It's
out there.
gotten worse. It's gotten worse. It's just terrible now. It's like it's basically a ghost town. It used to be kind of like at least the certain parts of the city were thriving, hustling, bustling, active with a lot of shops and restaurants, and it's all gone. Like I had the strangest experience. I think it was this year, about 3 months ago. I actually drove to kind of a famous restaurant down there called Tadish's, which is a great seafood restaurant. People should check it out. It's on California. But it was very common to just drive around for a half an hour, 45 minutes because parking was so expensive to just look for a spot. We literally drove up. There was an open parking spot and just parked in there and walked into the restaurant. It was totally surreal, but that's how dead it is. Like all those high rises are empty. There's no shops. I mean, it's and that famous like toy store shut down. They shut down things around Union. That was the city that I grew up in, and they've done a terrible job. The people who run it are total losers.
But
They're
can I say this though? I mean, because you mentioned all the smiley face stuff in Chicago and in Austin. It seems, I hate to say it, but I think when we look at what's going on in San Francisco and Portland and Seattle, New York, Chicago, Baltimore, there is. I think it will become known. I think it will become more apparent. But I think that there is a level of interest in like left-hand path occultism among people in the ruling classes of these cities, and it's finally starting to sink in. Like the other shoe is now dropping. The honeymoon is over. It's kind of like with drug addiction. You always have that honeymoon period, and I think the same thing with a lot of this left-hand path occultic things that I do believe that a lot of people, it's something that you would need to sit down and work out. But I see a lot of the signs of it, a lot of the signals that there is a heavy occult influence in a lot of these cities. And now it's running its inevitable course, in my estimation.
It's interesting you say that because there was a woman who is a psychic. Her name is Sloan. Have you heard of this woman? Sloan
No.
Bella? Does that name sound familiar?
No, I'm sorry.
Anyway, she did this thing, and kind of that was her take on Riley Strain, is that it's almost like an Antinous cult. They're abducting people. They're wealthy. And then when they're done, they just throw them in the river. And she named some big names. But I'll send you the link after the show. But yeah, she named. Yeah.
And that was Nashville, so.
Yeah, right.
You wouldn't expect that. Well, maybe
no.
now you would.
No.
But people who
his name rhymes with Barth Crooks.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Who had a really strange persona too, like a kind of a
Chris Gaines.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what she said, not me. That's
total classic dissociative disorder, right?
Yeah.
When you have to put yourself out as somebody else.
Yeah, how many of those country guys are a fake persona? What if they just that's my shtick? Like I'm gonna.
Well, we should do
right moves.
Maybe in October we should do something on Highway 91, the Harvest Festival out in Las Vegas. I did a lot on that. Maybe we can do a little retrospective on that whole situation with Jason Aldean and all the rest of it, and Area 51 and Janet Eyre. I mean, that whole situation was just so bizarre, right?
Yeah, it was bizarre.
That was another situation where people look like they see that big pyramid, which is basically the twin to the pyramid in Memphis, right? And you see that big ugly Sphinx and all this kind of symbolism, and it's so, and also the whole idea of the harvest and all this kind of thing. I mean, it's just, everybody was just like, wait a minute, maybe this isn't what it appears to be.
We had 161 live viewers on X, so without too much advertisement and me blowing yesterday's interview. So thanks everybody
No
for
worries.
listening.
No
And
worries.
thank you, Chris. Why don't you promote your books, your Patreon? You do post a lot on X/Twitter. Maybe if you want to add anything else, please do.
Well, secretsun.blogspot.com is sort of the hub, and that will get you to all the other places. But I'm also on SecretSun blog at SecretSun blog, or the SecretSun Speaks on Twitter/X. I refuse to call it X. It's still Twitter to
I
me.
try not to too.
Yeah, that's a bad name. That's bad branding. I'm sorry, Elon. I will tell you an interesting little story. So I have this private blog, and we were discussing Philip K. Dick's experiences in 1974. And one particular post was about, we were talking about how he had this whole epiphany while listening to Strawberry Fields Forever. And less than 36 hours later, Elon Musk posts about Strawberry Fields Forever in like the weirdest, most random way. But so you think, well, that's just a coincidence. But the interesting thing about that is that I had shut down that blog for about 6 months because I was noticing all this strange traffic coming in, one of which was from basically a security force in Las Vegas. And the other one was coming from literally a rock in the middle of the California desert. So it's a long story, but there would be a motivation for Elon Musk, considering who he was dating at the time, to be interested in what we were talking about. So I always thought that was like him giving me a little nudge, but hopefully that's not just some paranoid delusion on my part.
Strange days. I mean, somebody asked about Santos. Getting stranger. Have you heard about Santos Bonacci and his kind of work on synchromysticism or synchroism or something? Do you know Santos Bonacci?
I'm familiar with Santos Bonacci. I don't know if he's done synchromystic work per se. I probably need a little bit of a refresher on that. I know that name though, and I think I've sort of consumed some of his work.
Yeah, I tagged him in my mind as an occultist, but I could be wrong. I just kind of thought that he was on that kind of host spectrum, I guess is the way you put it. All the other hosts were kind of like occultists, but I don't know much about him either. So anyway, Chris, thanks so much for your time. Congrats on the new book. And the book we discussed today is the SecretSun Synchromystic Handbook, just published, I think, earlier in June. But also you can go back and listen to our 2 other interviews. One was the Endless American Midnight, and also we discussed the West Memphis 3. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, very, very much recommend people check that one out again.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks. Stay there.